make them guys, like we're RoboCops, we're coming in here, we're smashing these dudes if they get out of line, we're the bosses. And really, man, a lot of them are still scared.
Free Me Podcast.
And as you get down to the lower levels, some of the guards are a little better. I was in Raybrook in New York, and a lot of them guys, I shouldn't say 80% because a lot of them guys treated you with respect. You know what I mean? If you respected them, they respected you. They didn't necessarily go out of their way to, be nasty or to write you up for nothing. Most of them over there were all right. So you're right about when you drop levels. But then I went to a low my last 9 months, and they were absolutely horrible because they think everybody in a low is a child molester or everybody's a snitch. They can't go to any other prison, so they're scared, so they can abuse you there because you're not going to do anything in response that would, sacrifice your security level, because if you go to a medium or a max, well, guess what? Because of your crime or because of what you did, you're in danger. So you're going to let me abuse you and do whatever I want to you because you don't want to go to that other prison. And I was just kind of like, this wasn't a benefit for me. Going to a low security prison was not a benefit for me. I despised it. It was the worst place I ever been. The most disrespectful prisoners ever. People were, sneak thieving, and these are, and the staff were just absolutely horrible. Destroy your cell, leave everything all over the place for no reason, and it's been largely documented in my case where my prosecutor contacted the SIS officer, the investigative unit, and my judge said that they manufactured evidence on me to try to keep me in prison. They tried to pin me with a cell phone chip, which they never even had. They had a cell phone chip holder that was in my cellie's locker in his Bible. But they wrote in the court papers that it was in my Bible in my locker. Well, it all came out. That same guy that testified to that, he wrote my cellmate up and said it was in his locker, in his Bible. And the judge said, look, man, you guys are manufacturing evidence against this guy. And not only is it wrong, but it's flimsy. It doesn't even make sense. So, you got people down there at them low security prisons that, the guy, I'm like, look, man, you work in a prison. You want to be a cop? Go be a cop. You want to fight crime? Go be a beat cop. Go be a street cop. Fight crime out there. I mean, you don't have to come in here and manufacture stuff against me. I've been in here 17 years. I deserve a chance to get out. I had changed my life. At that point, I hadn't been wrote up in 8-9 years. I got a college degree. I taught GED classes. I taught leadership classes. I taught alternative violence, project seminars. I was a suicide companion. But yet I got this one cop that wants to be a super cop because my prosecutor called him and said, I need something on this guy. He went and made up a bunch of stuff. On my birthday, he stripped me butt naked and took pictures of all my tattoos and, tried to place them with whatever gang or car they wanted me to be in. So, people are nasty. And the lower the level, the nastier they got.
Those are facts. And that's the truth. It's a different type of game. It's more psychological when you get lower, and everything that you just said is what I experienced going from Beaumont to Miami Low, which Miami Low is considered one of the havens because it has a lake in the middle of the compound. It still has weights on the compound, so it's a privilege to be at that place. And exactly how you said is the mentality of them guards is they treat you like it's a privilege to be here. They'll ship you out of here real quick, and I'll never forget the first time I got there, right? Within a month, I was bumping heads with this lieutenant, and I had an altered shirt that I had for a long time, but it was just a white T-shirt that I sewed some gray long sleeves on, right? So I was coming back. It was a Sunday, and I'm coming back from the commissary, and this lieutenant, he's following me. So he's like, hey, you. Well, first and foremost, right, I know where I'm at, but I always kept a little self-dignity. And I wouldn't let anybody respond to me as, hey, you, right? You can call me inmate or whatever, because that's what I am. But you're not going to, I'm not some chick that you're going to, hey, Yeah. So I just kept walking. And he's like, he goes, now he says, inmate, if you don't stop right now, you're going to the shoe. So now I stop. I set my commissary down. I turn around. I'm like, Garcia, right? I said, why are you messing with me, man? So he's like, you got contraband on. So I look down, like, my shirt. I'm like, come on, it's Sunday, man. Because through the week you're expected to wear, your khakis. You're supposed to, you know, be presentable because you never know who is going to be on the compound. Right. Again, at the end of the day, you have to remember this whole thing is a play, right? So I'm telling Garcia, I'm like, look, man, it's you know, it's the weekend and it's Sunday. So he tells me, he says, man, I don't give a fuck what day it is. You got contraband on. Give me that fucking shirt. You know, he says, go back to the unit and give me that fucking shirt. Man, I took the shirt off right there in the middle of the compound and I threw it at him. I picked my commissary up and I kept walking, right? So this guy, man, he got 38 hot. He threw the shirt back at me and hit me in the back of the head. So he stops me and he's like, why did you throw the shirt at me? I said, listen, man. I said, you know what? I said, you're absolutely right, Garcia, because at the end of the day, I got contraband on, you know, and I said, you're in the right. So I'm going to cool out here. I said, but don't you ever talk to me like that ever again. I said, I'm a grown man, right? And you better respect what I am. I've made mistakes in my life, but respect who I am. I've changed my life. This is why I'm here in a low, you know? And I want to get into that with you because we talked about cars. We talked about the influence that people have on you and the expectations that they have of you to sell drugs, to hurt people, right? Under that pressure, how did you change your life, Chad?
Well, like I said, man, I think that people are mentally stuck at whatever age you go into prison, right? And I always considered myself an educated dude. Okay, I was a drug dealer, but I also owned a pizza shop. I was married. You know, I owned a home improvement company. And I felt like I had matured. I think something clicks, right? And at a certain age, you change and you start to, you know, appreciate things. Well, that happened to me before I went to prison. And then when I went to prison, I was like, man, it's like I'm stuck. And there came a point where I said, man, I want to get out of prison. So I have to be a better me. If I don't become a better me, then I'm never getting out of prison. I can sit in here, I can sell drugs, I can do whatever I want, have a nice white G-Shock watch, you know, buy Nike sunglasses when someone comes in with them, like you said, your shirt. I was that guy, man. I bought a necklace because I liked nice things before I went to prison. So if you came to that prison, I would just buy whatever you had. If it was nice and no one else had it, I wanted it, right? I wanted to feel like I was still on the street. So I started to change my rationale, man, where I said, I want to get out of prison. Do I want to be in here and have all the nice stuff for the next 40 years? Or do I want to get out of prison and have nice stuff in the street? So I started to grow up again. You know, I was stuck, but something clicked and said, man, you got to grow up. I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, I want to be a better me because I want to get out of prison. And that's the only way I'm ever getting out. So I changed my mentality, man. I changed my way of thinking. I'm kind of an aggressive dude. I've always been aggressive. So, you know, I tell people, man, I went from a gangster to a gentleman, man. But I can still be that dude if I had to be. But I tried to do things differently because the ultimate goal was what? To get out of prison. Like you said, I've told officers plenty, I don't even like calling them officers. I've told guards and cops plenty of times, hey, before I'm an inmate, I'm a convict, a prisoner, any of that shit, I'm a man. So respect me. And I was quick to tell them, hey, man, I got 40 years. I got nothing else to lose. And they knew exactly what I meant. Not that I wanted to do something to them, but if you did something to me, then I would return the favor, man. Because at that point in my life, I really didn't have anything to lose. But like you said, you told me, you know what? You're absolutely right. I'm a firm believer that people create problems, right? But you can give them a way out because you know that you could probably hurt this person, right? They probably got no shot. And I've been in situations where I'm like, this dude has no shot. But I'm going to give you a way out. I'm going to let you apologize, man. I'm going to let you, and there's been instances where we let people go up top at an FCI. Where I told dude, hey, man, you did this, you did that, you got to go. But we're going to allow you to leave without putting our hands on you. You know what I mean? So I started to rational where you don't always have to physically abuse someone, man. You don't have to stab people, man. You don't have to hurt people. You don't have to do that. And like I said, dudes in federal prison and maximum security prisons, they look for reasons to really hurt people. And it's minute stuff. The guy said at the table in the chow hall, okay, that was your chair. Just tell the dude, man, hey, listen, man, that's my chair, man. Don't sit there no more. You guys sit over there. The independent dudes, you guys sit over there at that table. Don't sit in my chair again. That could have been handled like that, but instead, you got 2 or 3 20-year-olds beating up a 50-year-old. I didn't like shit like that, man. Always been like that. I don't like people that bully people. I don't give a shit where you're in. Prison, high school, middle school. I don't like that shit, man. So when I was in a situation where, I was a leader, I believe leaders breed leaders, right? Bad leaders and good leaders. I would make good decisions, man. I wouldn't have people beat a dude up for sitting in the chair. You know what I mean? So I just changed my rationale. I changed my way of thinking. I changed my character, man. Character education. That's what I did.
Well, and that's what I want to get into. So who are you, and what did you change from?
Well, like I said, man, I
Where
changed
where did you grow up at?
I'm from upstate, Western New York. I'm from Rochester, New York.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up poor. My mother was a poor single mother on welfare. I became a crack dealer. I sold crack. I was, unfortunately, I had a whole crew of dudes working for me allegedly. So I ended up with a 40-year sentence at the age of 24, had that plea, went to trial, got convicted, went to federal prison. From day one, I always said I'm never getting out of prison unless I get myself out. So I went to the law library, learned the law, and then I started to meet people, man, that had the same shit done to them that was done to me. And they couldn't think past go. They couldn't help themselves. Some people just got it. You can go in there and read case law and learn it. Either you got it or you don't. I'm a firm believer in that. And some people just can't help themselves. So I had a guy, Billy D. Williams. And I like to talk about Billy sometimes. He pled guilty. He was 24 years old. He had 2 prior nonsense drug felonies for like $30 worth of crack and $50 worth of crack. Well, those 2 prior felonies mandated a life sentence for the next time he got caught with 50 grams of crack, which is less than the size of your palm, right? And they gave him life, but he pled guilty. Who the hell pleads guilty? You think if a lawyer told him, hey, if you plead guilty, you're going to prison for the rest of your life at the age of 25? The lawyer never told the dude that, man. He didn't have any money to hire me. I did his case for free. I lost his case. But eventually he got out under Obama, under clemency. So I had a desire to help other people. Like I said, I don't like people that bully people. And I feel like the government bullies people. They do nasty things. I don't know how anyone can take a 20-year-old kid that's selling drugs and tell him, look, I'm sending you to prison for the rest of your life. I think that's fair. How do you go home and have dinner with your family? When did you think about that 20-year-old kid? Did you ever go back and think about that his mom had him when he was 14? That maybe she was a crack smoker?
No, it's a business. It's like you say, you own what kind of business?
I own a paralegal and prison consultant firm.
No, I mean before you went in, you said that you had
I had a pizza shop.
Okay, so it's like a pizza shop, right? Perfect example. Pizza, you know that pizza's bad for people. You know that if you eat pizza continuously, that you're going to have health problems, right? Pizza's not the best thing for you, right? But you continue to serve it to people. Why? Because it's a business, and it's a good business, and you make money. It's the same thing with the prison system. It's the same thing with these politicians. It's the same thing with these judges. It's a business. The way they look at it, hey, you shouldn't have did what you did. You shouldn't have put yourself in a position to be wrapped up in my business. Now I'm going to profit off you. And this is how we're treated. This is what we're looked at, right? And instead of them, and listen, I'm cool with that, right? If that's what it is, then let us know that. Don't tell us that you're about reform. Don't tell us about that you're about rehabilitation. Tell us, come out on the news and just say, listen, we're a business. This is profit. You want to put yourself in, this is what you're facing. Maybe it'll change the way people look at crime. Who knows? We need truth, though.
Well, like you say, you change the criminal justice system, you stop sending people to prison. What happens? Well, you don't need as many lawyers no more. You don't need as many judges. You don't need as many school teachers in prison, which most of them don't teach anything anyway. You don't need the companies that are making the razor wire or the fencing, right? How many basketballs and footballs and baseball equipment do they sell to prisons? You're right, it's a business, man. How many people do they sit in these unicorn factories working for 25 cents, and they're tricking these people and making them think they made $200 this month. You're doing really good. $200 in prison is really good to some people, right? To most people. And they trick them, but yet they're selling this firm. Well, we're selling it to government agencies. We're making the uniforms for the military. We're doing this, we're doing that. Yeah, it is. It's a business for profit. But now I think that society's starting to think and see things, and they're not happy with the things that happen. There has to be consequences for actions, right? But if we're really about rehabilitation, then what should we be doing? We should give people a way out, right? Better yourself so that you can better society. Our society shouldn't be based on all the jobs that come with prisons and all the tax dollars that they get from workers that they just shove back into the system. You know, it's either prison or war that fueled our economy. So, I mean,
Well, it's scientifically
right.
proven. It's scientifically proven that it only takes 5 years to rehabilitate the human mind. To retrain the human mind, it only takes 5 years. So what do we need 40-year sentences for, right? If you're saying that it only takes 5 years to retrain the mind, and if that rehabilitation does not occur within those 5 years, then rehabilitation it can't happen. So what are we sentencing the people to 20 and 30 years for, right? But so how did you, Chad, get into drug dealing as a kid, right? You say your mother was single, on welfare. What made you choose that path?
Well, I'm gonna tell you what made me choose that path, right? My father was a drug addict, man. He died. He died. I believe he died getting high overdose.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It's all right. I never seen the reports or anything like that, but that's what I believe. Like I said, I came from a poor community, right?
What age was that?
But when my dad died,
Yeah.
I believe I was 20. I was 22 when my dad died.
Oh,
But
okay.
what I was just going back to what my neighborhood was, what my upbringing was. My father was a
Yeah.
drug addict. So we were poor. Growing up, we were poor. My father left when I was little. My mom struggled, ended up, on welfare, raising me and my sister at the time. And I wanted better. I was always a hustler, man. Always a hustler. I'd shovel people's driveways. I'd mow their grass. I'd carry people's grocery bags. If I wanted to go to WWF wrestling, I'd go hang out at the grocery market and say, "Can I carry your bags to your car for $1?" So I was always a hustler. But as I started to get older, I seen other kids had, better stuff than us. We were poor, man. We were kind of, I don't want to say we were just, dirty kids or stuff like that, because my mom was clean. But, there was a point in time where I only had 2 pairs of jeans, man. I had 4 shirts and 2 pairs of jeans. I said, I don't want to live like this, man. And I had a friend that was selling drugs and, for his uncle. And I was like, man, I want to sell drugs too, because I want to be able to buy some Nike Airs. I want to be able to have, some brand name jeans. And that's what I did. I started selling drugs for a guy out of a house. Didn't work out over the weekend. My mother, and actually I had a stepfather. My stepfather came down there and they brought me out of the house at 13 years old, pulled my pants down and spanked me, man, in front of everybody. You know how embarrassing that was? But that was the end of the line. After that, everything went downhill. I didn't care what my mom said. My stepfather left the home. Again, my mother was a single mother at that point. And I was the man of the house at 13. And I said, I'm going to start selling drugs. So I sold some fake drugs to some people in a minivan. They shot at me. They came back and shot at me. I sold them $100 worth of fake drugs, and they shot at me at 13 or 14 years old. But I took that money and bought real drugs. And then I started selling, back then it was powder cocaine. People were freebasing where I was from. And then I turned that into other money. And me and one of my buddies, we went in a partnership. And, he was kind of lazy. I talk about him in the book. And I just took off from there. I always had that entrepreneur spirit, even for bad things. And I started selling drugs and made my life better, I thought, at the time. But really all I was doing, every bag of dope that I sold, I was just taking a step closer and closer to Big Sandy. That was my first prison. So, in the end, I just made my life worse. So that's how I started selling drugs.
So how did you get wrapped up with guns and drugs?
Well, like I said, I'm from, New York, and anytime you're involved in the drug business, I mean, there's potential for danger, right? So we always had a gun in the house. Really, if I tell you what I went to prison for, you'd be shocked. I got 5 years for a 12-gauge shotgun and 25 years for a 22 rifle. I always thought as long as we didn't have a pistol, rifles are legal. So we can have a rifle in the house and we're good. Well, I didn't know the federal law said that if you have a weapon, if you're in possession of a weapon in furtherance of a drug trafficking crime, the first one is 5 years, the second one is 25, and every consecutive one is 25, and they all have to run wild. So what the cops did in my case, they knew the federal law. They busted a house, they found a gun, they didn't arrest me. They let me go. A month later, they busted another house, and then they arrested me. But I'm going to tell you why. Because if they arrested me the first time, I would have only been facing 15 years. But because of the second gun, I was now facing a mandatory minimum of 40. And they wanted that. But if I was such a threat to the community, right? Public safety factor, why didn't you arrest me then? Why'd you leave me out there for another month and a half? So you can get the extra 25 years. Was I a danger for the next 30 to 45 days that you left me out here, that you didn't arrest me? 100%.
Now,
But
is
you
that
left
what
me out
they
there to get me?
is that what they call stacking?
100%. That's 18 USC 924C stack.
Okay, so can you explain exactly the difference between a stacked charge, as you say, and an unstacked charge?
Yeah. So I'll just use me for an example, right? I was arrested for 50 grams or more of crack cocaine. That came with a 10-year sentence. The first gun comes with a 5-year sentence if I just possessed it. Really, they found it in the house that I wasn't even in, but I was charged with constructive possession. Had I brandished the weapon, that would have been 7 years instead of 5. Had I fired the weapon, it would have been 10. So now you get that first 5 years on top of the mandatory 10 for the drugs. The second gun that they find as part of the conspiracy, you get 25 years for that. And if I had a third one, it'd be another 25, and they have to be stacked. So now if I only had, and they can all be in the same indictment, you would think, well, that's a recidivist enhancement. The first time you get 5, you don't learn your lesson, you get out, you do it again, now you get 25 years. It doesn't work. It didn't work that way. It was 5 years, 25, 25. I got friends that are serving. Ian Owens, he's serving like 300 years for, he did some bank robberies, right? And had a weapon, but they gave him 300 years. 5, 25, 25, 25, 25, 25, 25, right on down the line. So that's the difference. But under the First Step Act, they changed that. You can no longer get 5 and 25 all in the same indictment. Now it's the 5, 5, 5, 5, or it could be, 7, 7, 7. If you brandished it, or if you fired it 10, 10, 10, 10. So they did change it, but this is the problem. They didn't make it retroactive. So all the guys, all the Joseph Mesas that I described earlier, all the Ian Owens, that didn't apply to them. So they're still sitting in prison suffering. But it's only for the guys that get arrested now and come in. But hopefully under the Biden administration, they'll change that. You know what I mean? And they should.
What kind of mental stress do you think that has on a person? I mean, how do you think that affects a person to know that you are sitting in prison for another 30 years and you're watching people go home with the same thing that you have?
Well, I can tell you from experience, right? I was, and not to be arrogant, I was one of the main, if not the main criminal justice advocate from prison on 924C. I wrote a big article after the First Step Act. They published it on FAN, put it everywhere. I was seeing guys get out on compassionate release. And, there's a bunch of lawyers involved. People, made the argument better. Like I said, I wrote the first one that won. I wrote it from prison. But I've seen other guys leaving that had 924C stacked sentences under compassionate release. And I'm like, damn, man, I've been the dude that's been advocating this, and I'm still sitting in here. And my stuff was filed, and I'm waiting on the judge. I think it was a total of 14 to 15 months from my initial filing before I got out. So it was devastating to think like, man, I'm not going to get out. And I got friends that I'm working on cases right now. Like, I want to use the rapper Lil Baby. You know who he is?
Yeah.
All right. Well, his father's in federal prison. He lived in the cell next to me. Had stacked 924Cs. I did all his legal work. I did his case. It was in front of the judge in Tennessee. That it ended up getting transferred to another judge. I did another case exactly similar to his in front of the first judge. 3 months after I did his, that guy's out of prison. Lil Baby's father, he's still sitting in prison because the new judge hasn't answered the motion. And he calls all the time, what can we do, man? I'm devastated, man. He started with life plus 55 years. He's like, I'm devastated, man. I just want to get out of here, man. What can I do? And all I can say is we just got to wait on the judge. There's a new case that comes out. I update. Hey, judge, exactly what we asked you, they just did in Florida. Or, hey, they just did it over here in New York. And that's all we can do. So, I mean, mentally, it's destroying. This kid lost his mom. And now he just lost his dad 2 months ago. And he's been in prison 27 years. The dude deserves 24, 25 years, somewhere in that range. This dude deserves to get out of prison, man. He hasn't had a write-up in 20 years. He had one write-up his whole time for being out of place. He was in a class when he had a high accountability. He didn't go up there and say, hey, call me in.
It's crazy.
He was in a class, and they wrote him up for not reporting. But the dude deserves to get out, man. So, man, guys are in turmoil over that stuff.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Just like I keep saying, Temujin Kinsu, the guy that I've interviewed several times, 34 years in prison, completely innocent, still trying to get home. The governor just denied his clemency. He's an innocent person. It's ridiculous.
You interviewed him?
Yeah. So yeah, it's on the show. So I got 3 interviews with him,
Okay,
2
I'm gonna
or
watch
3, maybe 2. Maybe
From
it's 2
prison?
interviews from prison.
Okay,
Yeah, he's up there in Michigan.
okay.
But so going back to the stack, right? Because I want to put this in perspective so people can really understand. So what Chad explained is, let's use bank robbery. So we have the initial act of conspiracy where, let's say, 2 individuals, us, Chad and I, we plan on robbing a bank. Then we run red lights on the way to the bank, right? Then we go in and we rob the bank. We shoot at people in the bank. We leave. We run red lights and hit a couple cars leaving the bank. We shoot at a couple people outside. I say that in that order because each one of those is an infraction. And what he's talking about is, instead of running the whole incident as just one bank robbery charge, it was just one ongoing incident. It was just fluent, right? There was no pause. They didn't stop, go to sleep, wake up. They didn't stop and eat anywhere and then commence. It was all just one action, right? What Chad is saying stacking is where they'll take that one action and break it down for each infraction to pile charges on you to get you into a career, criminal career status, to just give you a life sentence, essentially, right? Did I
Well, what they
explain that
do is,
correctly?
well, a little bit.
Okay,
What
clean
they
it up
do
for
is,
me.
I'd rather do it this way. A
Okay.
drug conspiracy, okay? Because
Okay.
what you're talking about, they've done that, and in the 10th Circuit, they shot it down and said they were wrong, that they shouldn't do it that way. But what
Right.
they do is, me and you we'll use the robbery analogy, right? Me and you commit a robbery, we get away, they don't know who we are.
Okay.
A week later, we commit another robbery, use the same gun, they don't know who we are. A month later, we commit another robbery of a bank, same gun. Now they know who we are. They got us on tape. We left a fingerprint. So for that first gun, you brandished it. You get 7 years, right? The second bank robbery, that's 25 years. And the last bank robbery is another 25 years. So now we got 57 years just for possessing that same gun, right? Really what it's supposed to be is a recidivist enhancement. That's what they fixed with the First Step Act. And now let's stay there for a second, but go back to a drug conspiracy. You bust a house, you find a gun, you don't arrest me. That gun's connected to my drug conspiracy. A month later, you bust another house, you find that .22 rifle, right? That's all part of the same conspiracy. So now I got 25 and 5. There's 30, plus 10 for the drugs, and they're all stacked on each other. So you got 10, 5, and 25, 40 years. Same thing with the robberies. You got 7, 25, and 25, 57. But that's not even counting the time that you're going to get for the robbery, which could be 0 to 20 years for the armed bank robbery. So the judge could say, you know what, I'm giving you 57 years for the guns and 20 years for the robbery. You've got 77 years. You're 30 years old. You're going to die in prison. Should there be? But now let's put this in perspective for your viewers, okay? The average sentence for murder in federal court the median sentence is 20 years. The average sentence for murder is 262 months, which is what? 22 years. So you can kill someone and get 22 years. There was a big case, Weldon Angelos, had stacked 924Cs, sold some marijuana, ended up with 55 years because they allege he had a gun every time he sold, an ounce or two to someone of marijuana.
Off somebody else's testimony, I'm sure.
Yeah. So off of that other guy's testimony, a confidential informant, another guy that had a criminal history and whatever. So he ended up with 55 years. And his judge said, I have to give this guy more time under the law than what a person who physically sexually abuses a child, a terrorist that gets on a plane and blows up the plane would get less time than this guy. I have to give this guy 55 years. But had he been a terrorist, I would only have to give him 20 years. Had he killed someone, his sentence would be 262 months. Had he molested a child, his sentence may have only been 10 years. but I have to give this guy 55 years. It's
Why? Why does the judge have to give that to him?
because those were statutory penalties that Congress imposed. You can't get around that. Those are mandatory minimums that Congress set the statute for, and the judge can't get under them unless you cooperate. That's really the only real way to go under. People are like, oh, well, the safety valve. The only real way to get under that 55 years was for him to come tell on someone, and he didn't do that, right? He went to trial, he lost trial, and he ended up with 55 years. However, by the grace of God, he's out of prison, and President Trump most recently pardoned him, so he no longer has a felony record. He's a big advocate for reform. And
Trump gave him a pardon.
Yeah, gave him a pardon. He got out in 2010 under Obama.
Mm-hmm.
He went to court, and they dismissed some charges. The Department of Justice dismissed a couple of the Stack 924Cs, and he ended up getting released. He had Mike Lee, the senator from Utah, helping him, so things worked out. He's been out since, I want to say, 2010, doing the right thing. Criminal justice reform activist, and worked closely with the White House on some stuff. And Trump pardoned him, so now he no longer has a criminal record either.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So he ended up he got 55 years.
Yeah.
How much would he have gotten if he would have cooperated?
Oh, God, I don't know. Had he cooperated, maybe in that situation, maybe 5-6 years.
Okay, so
Some
let's
guys
just say
cooperate
5
and get
years.
out. Yeah.
Right. So let's just say 5 years. So you're talking a difference of 50 years, right? To just go to trial, to use your First Amendment right to go to trial. So why do they do that, Chad? What is the pressure? Why
do they allow people to cooperate and get that time?
Well, why do the government punish us so badly for not cooperating? Or why is there such a wide range between 5 years and 55 years,
Well, let me tell you.
What's the incentive? What's the incentive that the government has?
I can only tell you what I think, right? And we can look at Sammy the Bull Gravano. Let's use him. Great example, right? Sammy the Bull Gravano admits to 17 murders on the stand, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
He ends up getting a plea for 5 years, right? That's because they wanted John Gotti so bad. So they were willing to say, hey, this guy that's a threat to the public, pretty obvious he's a threat to the public. He killed 17 people. He admitted to it. Probably more than that. He's a threat. Now, is he a threat to the community? I mean, common sense says this guy's a dangerous dude. We shouldn't let this dude out of prison, no matter who he tells on, right? But because we want John Gotti, we're going to allow him to tell, and we're going to let him out. And I think it comes down to what you said. I think most prosecutors, not all, but probably 85% of them, they're numb. They have no compassion. They have no feelings. They don't care about you. They don't understand what it's like. And, and I go back to, John Gleason was my federal judge, right? I mean, he was my attorney. He was a federal judge for 22 years. In fact, he was the guy that gave that deal to Sammy the Bull Gravano. I'm sure it had to come from Washington, D.C., but he gave that deal to him. But, since he stepped down from the bench, he's done a lot of things. He's said a lot of things. He's done videos. He helped me for free. I mean, these are $1 million lawyers that stepped in for free because he's seen the injustices. And he said something in a video that I seen that he did for the New York Times. And he said that his mentor told him when he became a federal judge, I want you to do this. I want you to visit a prison every year, because after you get done sentencing, our job is to do justice. But go see the places that we have that you're sending these people to. He said, go see the places. Go check out these people. Go see what where you're sending them. Go look at the effects of your sentencing. And Justice Gorsuch on the Supreme Court, he said that he used to tell all his clerks that, some of you guys are going to be, prosecutors someday. Some of you might be federal judges. Some might be defense lawyers. He used to take his students and his clerks into federal prisons. This is a Supreme Court judge. Some people don't like him, but I think the guy's fair. And that's all I ask for, man. As a criminal defendant, be fair. If the law says this and the police violated it this way, then, give me my due. Give me my due. But I also think that, like I said earlier, the time should fit the crime. The time should fit the crime. You don't take a 24-year-old and send him to prison for 40 years. I got a guy I used to write for. I write for Criminal Legal News, Jamel Ezell. 20 years old. They gave him 132 years at 20 years old. The judge says, I don't want to do this, but I have to. He robbed Domino pizzas, man, for $20, $30. You gave this 20-year-old 132 years. By the grace of God, he served 22 years. He just got out 2 weeks ago. And I used to write about him all the time. He was my example. He got out under compassionate release, under the stacking law. Now, there's guys all over the country getting out under it, right? But there's also guys like Ian Owens under the same law. His judge denied him in Michigan. No, because you got a nasty judge. If you got a nasty judge, the law don't apply to you.
Well, and that's the thing too, is we have to find a way to make everything universal. It has to be universal. If a man in it should be like Walmart, for real. You know, if I can find somebody's sentence in California that has the same exact charge that I got, that got less time than me, then I should be able to get that sentence too. You know, and it has to be universal. If somebody got out in Washington under compassionate release and theirs fits mine, then I should be able to get out on that too.
Well, it should be like this, because they had a problem with that. That's why they did the sentencing guidelines, right? And they're like, look, we want everything to come together, and we want, Joe Blow in California will get the same time as Jimmy Johnson over here in New York. Well, that's what the guidelines were for. Well, guess what? Didn't work out that way. Guys would have 262 months over here, and this guy would have 120 because they found ways to go under the guidelines, or this guy cooperated. Really, what it should be is the stuff should be retroactive, right? All the First Step Act stuff should be retroactive, and there's a whole lot more to do. But it should be mandatory for the judge to do it, as long as you have not been in a problem in prison. You're not running around stabbing people. You're not running around selling dope. You're not running around killing people. You're not raping people. Then you're entitled to the same thing that Jimmy Johnson got in New York. You're entitled to that in California. Because if you put it in the judge's discretion, it still comes down to the nasty judge. You got a nasty judge, you're not getting out. That's it. You're done. Sorry.
Yeah. And that's the fact. But at the end of the day, because we're coming up on an hour and a half, so at the end of the day, right? Again, like I say with my program and what I experienced through my change, and I'm only me. It's only me. And I changed the way that I changed, and I saw things the way that I saw things, and I see things the way that I see them now. At the end of the day, 99% of the problems that are in our lives, we bring upon ourselves, right? And I want my listeners, and I want everybody that comes in contact with me to understand that before we start broadcasting blame anywhere, right? What accountability have we taken for our lives and our decisions? I was a drug dealer. I started selling drugs at 13, 14 years old. Because like you, I wanted nice things and I just didn't know how to get it. My parents didn't give me no skills. I did not know how to do anything. I didn't understand life. I ended up wrapped up in a conspiracy, got all of this time. I spent the first 6 years of my life angry, blaming the prosecutor because, she lied completely at trial, blaming the agent because he was going around showing my picture, getting people to jump on my case, just everything. I was blaming everybody. And like you say, I was stuck, right? And after so many years, I started looking around, and Chad, I'm like, man, I'm more intelligent than this. I'm better than this. I don't belong here. I'm seeing 40, 50-year-old men running around with bandanas and their pants down around their ass, playing dominoes and yelling and not progressing as a human being. And when I started realizing, like, in order to change, I have to change, right?
No.
Because when we go into prison, we are who we are in prison, who we were on the street. If we were a knucklehead on the street, we're going to be a knucklehead in prison, right? And what made me change was my daughter, right? And I go into this in prior episodes, but my daughter one day at visit, and I was just tired of it. I was tired of her yelling that she wanted to stay with me. I just saw the pain that I was causing my family. And then it made me realize the pain that I've caused my family, and everything that I've just put these people through. My mother, 70 years old, dragging my 2-year-old daughter through visitation by herself, and I just felt like a piece of shit. Like, what have I done? And I changed. I stopped reading fiction. I stopped watching movies. I started picking up biographies. Like you say, I started going to the law library. I didn't know the first thing about my case. So I said, man, let me go learn about my case, and I started learning conspiracy, and I started teaching people, and I progressed, and one thing is, coming home, somebody had asked me, man, you ever going to go back to selling drugs? you know And I said, no, I'll never sell another drug in my life. And that's not because I don't want to go back to prison. I'll never commit another crime again, not because I don't want to go back to prison, right? But because I don't want to hurt people. I've hurt people. I am part of what we see today. I've helped destroy communities. I've helped tear families apart. And I live with that every day. Right? Every day I live with that. I think about the little girl that at her birthday party, her dad owed me $200. I didn't care. I ended up taking her TV as a birthday present because he owed me $200. This stuff haunts me today. And this is why I give back. And this is what I do. And I just want people to understand that we live in emotions every day, right? We're in our emotions every day, and we're allowing government to distract us with all of this propaganda that we see on TV to keep us in an emotional state. So we go out and we do the things that we do under emotions, under depression, under anger, right? At the end of the day, we have the choice. At the end of the day, we have the choice. Nobody can take our choice. I can either choose to be bad or I can choose to be good, and this is just who I am, brother. I look at you. Like I said, I have mad respect for you. I have mad love for you as a human being for going through what you've went through, enduring what you've endured. And people like you and me, only us can understand what we've been through, right? And we stick together in that, and I love you for that. I love you. You're a soldier. You're a champion. And I wish you many blessings on your journey, brother.
I appreciate you, man. And, people that want to know about what's really going on in federal prison, like I said, I wrote a book, man. I've read a lot of books, like you've probably read a lot of books. And a lot of them dudes never been in the places that I've been. They never experienced what I experienced. I was so tired of these books of guys talking about prison that never been nowhere. So I wrote that book, Blood on the Razor Wire. It takes you inside a violent federal prison. It takes you inside the criminal justice system. And it shows you what's really going on. We're not faking. It's everything in that book's 100% real, man. And it goes from prison to the street, back to prison, and how I ended up where I ended up. And I don't like to say it's a book about redemption, because it's not. It's a book about what's real and raw. It's raw. It gives you, perspective. Some people have, told me, hey, man, the book was scary, but it was real. And I appreciate it. So tell people to check out that book, man. I appreciate you and the things that you do, man. You're a good guy.
Where can they get the book at?
You can get it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Blood on the Razor. That's the book.
Yeah, I like that.
And the mission is not for me to make a bunch of money, because I don't really make nothing off the book. But there's a bigger mission.
Awareness.
That's there you go, man. And to, maybe get a platform, turn the book into a movie, and then we can start getting a real message out there. Because like I said, you know it, I know it. Dudes walk out of prison and forget about you, forget about everybody inside. So even if it became a movie, it just gives me a bigger platform to do what I said I was going to do, and I'll continue to do.
And so, I'm with you. And I got people behind me for that purpose, because again, I'm attacking reform from a whole different angle. I'm not talking to these politicians. I'm not talking to these legislators. I'm talking to my American blue collar worker that hates prisoners, that can't understand gang members, that go out and work every day hard and can't understand why everybody can't do that. You're the person that I want to change, because you're the person that's going to stand up and say, no, we need reform. The only way we're going to get reform is through our brothers and sisters out here on the street. We have to change the stigma. So you got a YouTube channel?
Well, I got a YouTube channel. I'm going to have on the content up Monday. That's also Blood on the Razor Wire TV. And I'm getting everything set up now. If they want, they can go subscribe now, pre-subscribe. I promise that they will not be disappointed. I'm going to take you inside the prison system, but the ultimate mission is to save kids from life imprisonment and premature death through our stories.
Okay, you're gonna have me on the show because I saved some of my glory for you.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100% have you on the show. I appreciate you, man.
All right,
Thank
man.
you.
Take care, man. Stay blessed, partner.
You
And
too.
thank you for all your kind words too, man. I heard you.
I mean
Thank
them.
you.
Thank you.
Free Me Podcast.